everyone. My name is Stephanie Pengshu. I am the Sergeant at Arms at Evansville Number One Club, the past president. I want to welcome all of you to attend the club's 75th anniversary celebration. Welcome guests, past members, and fellow members. Now I'm calling meeting to order. I'm so glad to see so many people attending the meet tonight. And I saw there's over like 20 people, so I would like to have the guests to do a quick introduction before the meeting, and my members do the brief introduction near the end of the meeting. Guests, please introduce yourself with your name and what you do. Maybe Matt, you can ask like each guest's name.
Certainly. Well, we'll skip Jean because she is a guest to our club, but she's going to get her own propers in a minute. David, why don't we go ahead and start with you, David Watkins.
Sure thing. My name is David Watkins. I'm a longtime Toastmaster. I joined back in January of 1988. I've been a member of District 25 down in Fort Worth, Dallas area. I recently left and moved up to the Texas Panhandle because of family issues, but I've been a big competitor in Toastmasters, and I've done tall tales, humorous, international, all sorts of stuff. And Toastmasters, I think, has really helped me not only break out of my comfort zone and my shell, but I think also helped me stay employed much longer than I might have otherwise with all layoffs and so forth. Very, very happy to be here. Congratulations on your 75th anniversary. That's one heck of a milestone. So congratulations, way to go.
Thank you very much, David. And John Biggs?
Yes, my name is John Biggs. I've been a member of Toastmasters for about 3 years. I'm a member of the Owensboro Club. I also operate as Vice President of Public Relations for that club. And I've been retired since September, so I'm just kind of getting more into Toastmasters as we go along.
Excellent. Thank you very much, John. Kyoko.
Hello.
Sorry, you're muted, Kyoko.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Hello, my name is Kyoko Okamoto. I've been Toastmaster member since 2018. I am a member of top of the Toastmaster Club in Lafayette in Indiana. So now currently I'm contacting with the member on Zoom, and tomorrow will be the second time Toastmaster on the meeting. So I'm a very beginner, and English is my second language, so I'm not good at speaking at all, but learning is very exciting for me, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Kyoko. And I think you're better than what you think you are at speaking English.
Thank you.
The Nellers?
Hey there, Eric and Joanna Neller here. We're now in Sarasota, Florida, former members of the Evansville Number One Club when we were in Evansville for, I would think we're members for roughly 4 or 5 years out of the total 8 years that we were there. And we went to the left coast and then came down here, and we're embarking on some new things and holding on to some old things at the same time. So that's what we're doing right now. Not currently a member of a club, but we got here in October, and glad to be here online with you all.
All right. It looks like Joanne's going to remain mum, which is okay. We'll move on to Nikki Klaus, our Division D Director.
Hi, I'm Nikki Klaus. You already said that. I've only been the Toastmaster for 3 years, going on 4 years now. There's not really a whole lot to say there. I'm a member of 2 different clubs at the moment. The Owensboro Toastmasters and the US Bank Toastmasters in Owensboro. I can't really attend that one so much anymore because I switched departments, and my new department no longer supports that Toastmaster club. I'm now a mortgage refinance processor. So all of my 3 years of training are now coming into full force when I have to talk to my borrowers on the phone. So that's super scary, but I feel well prepared now. Thanks to all of you lovely people. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm sorry, is it Joni or Johnny? Maybe that could be a part of your introduction.
It's Joni Hendricks.
Okay.
And I am a member of both the U.S. Bank Corporate Club and the Owensboro Toastmasters Club. I hold the position of president for the corporate club and secretary for the Owensboro Club. I have been in Toastmasters. This is my 3rd year. I really enjoy it. I did my first competition last year, didn't win, but I fully intend on going forward in the competitions. It's something I really enjoyed. I work as a manager and assistant vice president at US Bank. I'm on the phone a lot. This has really helped me in talking to our upper management and being able to communicate better with them, to be able to read my audience better. Toastmasters has absolutely been a benefit to me. And congratulations on your 75th anniversary. That is, as he said, someone said earlier, an awesome milestone to make.
Thank you very much, Joni. We'll move on. I believe it's Carol Kroll. I'm hoping that I've got that right. Car Kroll is your thing on here. She's coming to us from somewhere where it's 8 a.m. So.
Hi, my name is Car. I'm a Toastmaster in Australia, and what I do is full-time is Toastmasters.
Very cool.
Welcome.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time and braving the time zones to be with us this evening. Bob Glenn.
Yes, I just now got on here. So if you're asking me for my social security number or ID, I don't have it, but I do want to congratulate you on your 75th anniversary. I know our club's pretty old. I think we're a little younger than you, but we're going to be close to 70 because we had our 55th anniversary a few years back. But it's a tremendous accomplishment, and congrats to your club and all the good job and work you're doing in Evansville.
Thank you, Bob. And Jennifer?
Maybe she's muted.
She is unmuted, but I don't hear her. Yeah, let's go ahead and move on to Anna.
Hello.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, and nice to see everyone. I am here from RB Formulators, where I'm the VP of Ed. And thank you, Robin, for the invite, and congratulations to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And while I've got the floor for just a second, I would just ask everyone that if you're not speaking, to please keep your microphones muted. And as you see, I'm not just waving my hands around because I'm crazy. That's the way that we show our appreciation in the Evansville Number One Club, as I'm sure some of you do as well. But with that, I will hand it back to Stephanie.
Thank you, Matt. Now it's my honor to introduce to you our Toastmaster tonight. Our Toastmaster has been with Evansville Number One Club since 2006. Robin achieved his Distinguished Toastmaster Award this year and recently completed Level 4 of Leadership Development. Robin is a dual Toastmaster member since sponsoring the corporate club, RB Formulators. He is our past area director and currently serves as Evansville Number One Vice President of Education. Please help me to welcome Robin Wiggins.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for that great introduction. I'd love to be able to run up to a podium and generate some more energy than just sitting behind the camera, but we'll make the best of it. But it truly is an honor to have everyone attend this, not just current club members, but even recent past members of Evansville Number One Club and guests. It's something that we've been planning and talking about for some time. We obviously wanted to have some live event where we can get together and make it more of a bigger thing, a soiree kind of event, but we'll make the best during the COVID, and possibly at some point next year, maybe we'll get a chance to do it in person and have a more formal recognition of this milestone. But thank you again for everyone that is able to attend. Normally in Toastmasters meetings, as most of you know, we generally have a lot of helpers, whether it's timers, counters. We're going to dispense with most of the normal helpers. But tonight we have a special helper. Matthew Alm is the man behind the curtain. He's the guy pulling all the strings and making things happen. He's currently our Evansville Number One Club president, and he's also our resident audio-visual guru. So anything you need, time you need help for that kind of activity, Matt is a great person to reach out to. Now, Matt, can I ask you to go ahead and share your screen, and we'll drop the agenda into the screen. Perfect. I won't go into the detail. You can read through that, but we're pleased to have a great lineup of speakers and well wishes from several, including Mayor Winnecke, Toastmasters International President Richard Peck. We'll also get a perspective of what was going on during the time of the club charter. And it chartered on December the 1st, 1945. And with that, we'll get a perspective from Dr. Stella Ress, who is currently a history professor at the University of Southern Indiana. And we'll also have an opportunity for table topics where we will call on several members and past members and any guests that would like to participate. So we'll certainly give everyone an opportunity to speak as we go through. But first, let's first acknowledge December 7th, 2020 as Evansville Number One Club Day. Matt, could you share the proclamation provided by the city of Evansville?
Thank you very much, Robin. Had to do a little bit of fancy footwork really quickly there. City of Evansville Proclamation. Whereas Toastmasters International is a worldwide nonprofit educational organization which empowers individuals to become more effective communicators and leaders. There are more than 340,000 members representing 16,200 clubs in 145 countries. And whereas the Toastmasters program helps members develop skills in speaking, listening, decision-making, effective meeting management, and mentoring. These vital skills promote self-awareness, enhances leadership potential, and fosters human understanding. And whereas Toastmasters provides an environment where members have the opportunity to regularly give speeches, gain performance feedback, and lead teams in a supportive atmosphere. And whereas members of the Evansville Number One Club have been careful and deliberate stewards of the mission and goals of Toastmasters International while serving the citizens and therefore enriching the community of Evansville since December 1st, 1945. And whereas the opportunities offered by the Evansville Number One Club play an important part in developing its members and our community leaders, therefore be it resolved that I, Lloyd Winnecke, Mayor of the City of Evansville, do hereby proclaim December 7th, 2020 as Evansville Number One Club Day.
Thank you for that, Matt. Maybe it's because of my age, but when we were setting this meeting up for December the 7th, of course, several of us said, well, this is obviously a historic day. It's a date that will live in infamy. And I won't mention names, but some in our group said, I don't know what December 7th recognizes or symbolizes. So that's okay. It's before 9/11, that's where the U.S. became involved in World War II. And actually, because the club was chartered on December the 1st, very, very appropriate that we have it on another historic day within our U.S. history. But we're glad to have our district leadership in attendance. Today we have Sharon Combs, who's serving as our area director. We have Nikki Klaus, who is our division director, and Jean Wolfe, our district director. I'd like to ask our district director, Jean Wolfe, to offer a few comments as we start the meeting. Jean, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Robin. It truly is an honor to be with you this evening. Thank you so much. Consider this, Toastmasters. There are approximately 16,000 Toastmaster clubs in the world. 16,000. Of those 16,000 clubs, only 96 clubs throughout the world have been in existence for 75 years or more. Only 96, less than 1%. You, my fellow Toastmasters, Toastmasters of Evansville Number One Club, are in an elite group. Just as we are in unsettling times right now, consider the circumstances of this club the year it started, 1945. A world that was consumed with uncertainty. Pearl Harbor was fresh in everyone's minds. Hitler, the USS Indianapolis, sunk by Japanese sub. FDR, in his 4th term as president, dies. Atomic bombs at Nagasaki and Hiroshima. What an unsettling time to start a club. The primary method of communication at that time was letter writing. In fact, only 5,000 homes in the United States even had a television set. Can you imagine? The assembly of the world's first general purpose electronic computer was completed, and it covered more than 1,800 square feet. Quite different from our cell phones today. The microwave was invented, and the following people were born in 1945. Henry Winkler, Hans, Goldie Hawn, Bette Midler, Davy Jones, Steve Martin, Rod Stewart, and the Evansville Number One Club. Congratulations on 75 years of encouragement, of development, and supporting the growth of members. The history of Evansville Number One continues to be written in the impact it has on personal and professional lives. Carry on, Evansville Number One, for the next 75 years. Back to you, Robin. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jean. I learned several things from that, but the one thing that stood out to me is the 96 clubs out of the 16,000 are still in existence. You know, we tell everyone that we're Club 337, which means we were the 337th club that was formed, chartered by Toastmasters, but I didn't know how many of those were still remaining. Now I know. That's even more impressive that we're within the oldest 100 clubs that exist within Toastmasters, a great milestone. And thank you for those words, and we appreciate your attendance as well. Next, we reached out to the mayor of Evansville, and he graciously offered to give us a few words of his contribution. Unfortunately, he couldn't make the live event, but he was gracious enough to send us a video. Matt, I will turn it over to you to play the video message from Mayor Lloyd Winnecke.
Mayor Lloyd Winnecke here. I'd just like to take a moment to congratulate Toastmasters Evansville Number One Club on your 75th anniversary. What an amazing milestone. Toastmasters does so much to empower people to develop communication and leadership skills, providing greater self-worth and greater confidence. Thanks for all you do to make your members and our community even stronger and more positive. Congratulations.
We got the message. Thank you for that, Matt. And we appreciate Mayor Winnecke taking the time to prepare that for us. And unfortunately couldn't be here in person, but it still means a lot for us to have the mayor participate and be able to send us that kind message. Next, I'd like to introduce Professor that will go through a little bit of the history that was going on at that time. As mentioned, we chartered in December of 1945, and Jean touched on a lot of the things that were clearly going on at that time. And we can only imagine what it was like to those that lived in the city at this time, with World War II just ended, the city transitioning from being a wartime industrial city, people getting back to their normal lives and jobs, and the economy picking back up. But to give us a perspective on this time in our club's history, our next speaker is a public historian and assistant professor in the history department at the University of Southern Indiana. She teaches courses in both U.S. history and public history. She received her PhD and master's from Loyola University Chicago and her bachelor from Eartham College in Richmond, Indiana. Please help me welcome Dr. Stella Ress and A Post-War World.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Stella Ress, and I just wanted to say thank you very much for the opportunity to give this short lecture to you all. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of History at the University of Southern Indiana, where I teach courses on U.S. history, including U.S. in Depression and War, 1914 and 1945. So this is definitely in my wheelhouse. Again, I just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to give this short presentation on what was happening in Evansville, in the United States, and around the world between 1945 and 1950. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to send me an email at sres@usi.edu, or even to call me at 812-228-5137. So since I only have about 5 minutes or so, and to be honest, it gets closer to 10, I thought that I would distill the most major events and changes into 3 areas: what was happening in Evansville, what was happening in the U.S., and what was happening around the world. Now, it's important to remember that all of these geographic locations are, in fact, in conversation with one another. Although, for example, the Evansville Day Parade happened here in Evansville, it was obviously in commemoration for the end of the war in Europe, which impacted people in the United States and around the world. So let's get started. This is a beautiful aerial view of mid-20th century Evansville looking northeast from the riverfront and Dress Plaza. A lot of change has happened since this depiction, so let's look at some of what was transpiring when this postcard was circulating. We're going to start with the bingo riot, since chronologically it was the first thing that happened. After a 6-month shutdown on all gambling in Evansville, Republican Mayor Mason Reichert announced that fraternal organizations and patriotic nonprofits were again allowed to hold bingo games. Apparently, however, that did not apply to the Young Men's Democratic Club, which was denied a permit to hold their own bingo game. They were not happy and planned to go ahead with it anyway. For his part, the mayor planned to, quote, arrest all operators, players, and spectators, unquote, of the unsanctioned bingo game. According to the press, upwards of 9,000 people showed up to watch what would happen. They saw, for example, a group of young people turning over a police car, seen here. Several people were arrested for disorderly conduct and damage to public property. Eventually, all charges were dropped, and the mayor allowed bingo games for political groups as well. On July 23, 1945, so just 2 short weeks later, one of the largest parades in the city was held to celebrate Evansville's contributions to the war effort, including, for example, the 160 LSTs they built, the 6,500 P-47 fighter jets, like this one here, that they built, and the billions of bullets that they constructed and shipped off. On December 9th, 1941, when the U.S. officially entered the war, President Roosevelt made a speech over the airways saying that, quote, we are now in this war. We are all in it all the way. Every single man, woman, and child is a partner in the most tremendous undertaking of our American history. End quote. He was not wrong. In Evansville and around the country, women and children did their part to aid the war effort too. This included collecting scrap materials like discarded fat used for bullets, paper, metal, and rubber, funding the war through war bond drives, planting victory gardens, rationing food, writing morale-boosting letters to loved ones, and even strangers stationed abroad. It was an all-out effort. The Evansville Day Parade celebrated their hard work. Now, as I mentioned before, though, all of these locations are in conversation with one another. What was happening in Evansville was, to some extent, mirrored around the nation, and vice versa. Let's take a look at some larger events that were happening in the United States. Going back in time for a second, on April 12, 1945, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt died. This was stunning, as he had led our country through both depression and war. In fact, if you were 12 years old or younger, he was the only president you ever had. This was a devastating blow to our country and to our allies around the world. Harry Truman was sworn in, and he would play a huge role in how the war ended and in the remaking of the post-war world. Speaking of the post-war world, one trend that would have a huge impact on our country, its people, its infrastructure, even its politics for decades to come, is the post-war baby boom. Couples who had put off having children throughout the war decided to start that family in a hurry. And not just any size family, but big ones. It wasn't uncommon, for example, for them to have 3, 4, 5, even 6 children. In fact, between 1946 and 1964, over 78 million Americans were born. The chart on the left visualizes what an anomaly this was. And the postcard on the right is from one of the many businesses that profited off of this baby boom, Evansville's own The Baby Shop, which was in operation for decades and catered to families with children. Another big social event, if you could call it that, would be the beginning of the civil rights movement as we know it. Shortly after taking office, President Truman created a civil rights commission to investigate civil rights issues across the nation. Ultimately, he helped kickstart desegregation when he signed Executive Order 9981, which ended segregation in the U.S. military. While Truman was desegregating the U.S., Jackie Robinson, number 42, desegregated baseball when he signed for the Brooklyn Dodgers in 1947. The desegregation of U.S. sports had already begun the year before when football's Cleveland Rams signed 2 African-American players, Kenny Washington and Woody Strode. It would continue after Robinson when, in 1950, NBA's Boston Celtics signed Chuck Cooper and the New York Knicks signed Nat Sweetwater Clifton, or what would become NBA. Now, moving on to the world stage, which again plays out nationally and locally. After all, African-American efforts in World War II is a big reason why desegregation in the military and elsewhere transpired. I want to talk about a few major events that shaped the world: the end of World War II, the development of the post-war world, and the ensuing Cold War. Let's start with the end of World War II. On May 7, 1945, Germany officially signed an unconditional surrender delivered to U.S. General Dwight D. Eisenhower. The war in Europe was over. Victory in Europe Day, or VE Day, was celebrated as parties across the world spontaneously broke out. Again, we had our own in Evansville in June of that year, which I already talked about. Meanwhile, knowing that the end of the war was near, the Big Three, that is the most powerful of the Allied nations, the U.S., the USSR, and Great Britain, held meetings starting in 1944. The final Big Three meeting took place at Potsdam, near Berlin, in July of 1945. During these conferences, the Big Three seemingly decided the fate of the world, including what would happen in Poland. It would fall under the sphere of influence of the USSR, though Stalin, of course, promised fair elections. What an occupied Germany would look like. It was decided that Germany would be occupied by the Americans, British, French, and Soviets. It would also be demilitarized and disarmed. Nazi racial laws and other legislation were to be repealed, and war criminals tried and punished. The Big Three also came to agreements, even if tenuous, over Germany's wartime allies. So Italy, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Romania, setting up another conference in the following years to discuss what would happen to them. It was also during this conference, near the end of July actually, when the U.S. and its allies, though notably not the USSR, issued an ultimatum to Japan to surrender. Japan refused. So on August 6, 1945, the United States dropped the first atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. Just 3 days later, when the Japanese still refused to surrender, we dropped a second bomb on the city of Nagasaki. At least 140,000 people died immediately in these attacks. Tens of thousands more died from radiation in the ensuing weeks, months, and years. In one respect, though, it was successful. Japan surrendered. The world celebrated Victory Japan, or VJ Day, on August 14, 1945. The bombing also set up a conflict between the U.S. and the USSR, the Cold War. The Cold War was an ideological conflict between two ways of life: the social system promoted by the U.S. and the social system promoted by the USSR. It was perhaps first articulated by Winston Churchill when on March 5, 1946, he claimed that, quote, an iron curtain had descended upon the eastern half of Europe. Churchill's speech helped to popularize the idea of an impending long-term struggle between the United States and the Soviet Union. So there was much more that I could have talked about today that transpired in the years between 1945 and 1950, from the creation of Israel to the U.S. granting the Philippines independence, to the creation of the North Atlantic Treaty, or NATO, to the Marshall Plan and the rebuilding of Europe, and so on and so forth. Alas, however, time is of the essence. I hope you've enjoyed this very short history lesson, and again, feel free to send me questions or comments to sres@usi.edu or to give me a phone call. Thank you again.
Awesome. That's a great perspective of what was going on in 1945. Does it strike anyone else the similarities between now and then? Yeah, it strikes me that in the year 2020, during a pandemic and COVID, everyone either knows someone or possibly has someone that's directly impacted by COVID. And then all the stress that's going on in this day with the worrying about the economy, worrying about a lot of things going on. I can only imagine what it was like to have lived in 1945. Certainly at the beginning of the year with the war going on, hope that it would end, and then through the end of the year, hope starts to spring life, and then people start to see what the future could look like. Very similar situation as we're living today, and I can definitely see some similarities. But we appreciate Dr. Resk providing that overview to give us a perspective of what the charter members of the Evansville Number One Club were going through. Next, I'd like to introduce a walk down memory lane of Evansville Number One Club with Larry Porter. Larry is one of our longest serving members of Evansville Number One Club. Larry joined Toastmasters in 1984 and has been a continuous member of various clubs. Since then, he graduated from Michigan State University with a degree in engineering. He completed his MBA from the University of Illinois in Springfield. To help bring this perspective of the history of the club, Kyle Kemp, our current VP of Public Relations, will conduct a one-on-one interview and take us down this memory lane. Please help me welcome Kyle Kemp and Larry Porter.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see everyone. This has been a fantastic event so far, and I look forward to hearing some of these answers from Larry. So Larry, what were some of the different venues you have had a Toastmasters meeting at? You're muted, Larry.
All right. Well, my first club was one they called Executive Toastmasters, and they met at the old Executive Inn downtown. It was a 6:45 meeting, and it was over promptly at 8 o'clock, which worked well for my work schedule. And through the years, one of the places we met was at the old Holiday Inn on Fairs Avenue. Met there for a while. Then at this small business incubator when it was still there at Lloyd and Fulton before they tore it down for expansion of the highway. And then I think that's when I got into the Evansville Number One Club, and they were meeting at the meeting room above the Goodwill Industries. There was an Italian restaurant down there, and they would cater the meal in the meeting room in Goodwill Industries. And that was probably the first time I was in such a big Toastmasters club. There were probably 40 to 50 members in Evansville Number One when they were meeting in that meeting room. It was a giant meeting room. And when that was closing down, we struggled to find places to meet. And after that, I believe we went to the China Buffet on Green River Road. And we were there about 5 pounds too long for me. And they were very accommodating and the food was fine, but I ate too much of it. And then currently, I think from there we went to our current place. And it's real difficult to find restaurants that don't want a minimum bill or they don't want to charge you for the room. And I'll put a plug to Carousel because their food is pretty good and they've been so accommodating to us. I mean, it's probably been the nicest, most cooperative place I've ever been. Now, Executive was good when we were meeting down there. That was in 1984 and times were different. But the Carousel has been so accommodating.
Thank you, Larry. It sounds like the Evansville Number One Club has always followed the good food around the Evansville area, which that's right. A good thing. That's a great thing. What was the most remembered speech you have ever had that comes to mind?
The most remembered speech is not one that I made, but I was tasked when I was involved with the Castle Soccer Club before it was an authorized high school sport, with finding a speaker for our banquet at the end of the year. And there was a guy in our club by the name of Bob Case who was a real active Toastmaster. He was a young guy. He had played some professional baseball, as I recall. And I asked him, I said, would you would you give a speech at our banquet? He says, yeah, he'd be glad to. And I don't remember the speech, I'll tell you that. But what was most shocking was he came, and after dinner he gave his talk, and we got in the car, and my wife and I walked in the car, and I said, man, that's the worst speech I ever heard him give. He was so, I didn't understand it. So we got in the car, we're driving home. I asked my two boys who were both on the soccer teams, I said, what did you think of the speech? And they couldn't say enough good stuff about it. And they were just, oh, it was just great, just great. So I didn't understand. So I got home and they were getting ready to go to bed, showering and stuff. So I called some of the other officers and I said, well, what'd your boys say about the speech? And about the 4 officers I called, they all said their kids raved about the speech. And it was so amazing, when I started thinking about it, that this guy tuned in so much to those kids. I didn't understand. But I mean, all the kids just raved about his speech, how important it was and how good it was. But I thought it was a terrible speech. And but to his audience who he's targeting at, it was the greatest speech they ever heard. And coming from teenagers, that's high praise.
Thank you, Larry. That's really neat. Out of all the speeches you have given, what was the most difficult speech you had to get through, and how did you survive that speech?
I don't know if it was the most difficult. The one I remember most, I was in my the Competent Toastmaster manual. And I was probably maybe in the middle of it, because they always encouraged at my first club that walk out in the audience and throw away your notes and talk to the audience. And I had prepared a speech on neckties, for lack of a better thing, and dress code in 1984. Business people wore neckties and sport coats, or at a minimum. So I'm up there giving a speech, and the date was, I know the date of a day in the month, it was Halloween. So I'm up there giving my speech, and standing in the middle of the group, talking about neckties, showing them what my necktie was and what a rep tie was and this forth. And I had a couple samples, and all of a sudden next to me was a gorilla and a caveman. Two of the other members decided it was Halloween, and they were dressed like cavemen, but below their collars, their neckties stood out. So I reached over and grabbed their neckties and started talking about their necktie. Look here, even a gorilla wears a necktie. Even a caveman wears a necktie. And they were both a little embarrassed, I think, trying to get away, but I had a hold of their neckties. So that was probably the one I remember most, because I mean, they were trying to screw me up and make it difficult. And they came up and their collars were open. I just grabbed their neckties and went on with my speech. I did get to win Best Speaker that day. I remember that.
There you go. Congratulations on Best Speaker. Out of all your different groups and all the years you spent in Toastmasters, past and present members, who would you like to acknowledge that helped you the most along the way?
Well, one of those guys is that, I think he was the gorilla in that speech, a guy by the name of Leo Cranwetter, who passed away just in the last couple of months. He was probably 90 when he died, but he recruited more Toastmasters than I ever had. I mean, he was constantly, I don't know how many clubs he belonged to. He would go to 2 or 3 meetings a week and was always pushing Toastmasters. I know he was an area governor, I believe, and district director and all that kind of stuff. And until he got too old, he was pretty active in Toastmasters. The other one I remember fondly is our own Bob Ashby, who was a member of our club until he recently passed away. And he didn't talk about it a lot, but he started Break Supply, which is a pretty good big size business here in Evansville. And he was a founding member of that. The other guy that was in our club for a long time, he's not active anymore, is Tom Titzer. And Tom never talked about what he did a lot either, but Tom probably did more of the speechcraft programs for 8th graders at St. Teresa than anybody did anywhere. He would do one every year and never talk about it, but he'd go do a speechcraft with the 8th graders at St. Teresa every year. And of course, our other member that's been a member longer than me, I think Roger Emge, and I think he joined in 77. He's been a CPA, and I've always admired him for his evaluations that he gives. He's very honest, forward, and if he hears something wrong, he will tell you. But those are the ones that really come to mind off the cuff for me.
Thank you. And thank you, Larry, for all your dedication to Toastmasters. Not only have you become the well-rounded speaker and member of Toastmasters, we all know that you've helped many along the way achieve whatever they wanted out of Toastmasters as well. So thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
To you, Toastmaster.
Very good. Thank you for that, Kyle and Larry. And definitely thank you, Larry. One of the strengths I know you have is I don't think I've ever recorded an or in any of your speeches or talks in the years I've been a Toastmaster. So you definitely modeled that behavior. But we're very fortunate as a club. And I know, speaking for probably Matt and myself, who have been with the club for that 10 to 15 years, I joined in 2006, and we had some wonderful men that were part of the club for a number of years, Bob Ashby and Jim Rayburn, who I wanted to call attention to. And Jim Rayburn joined the club in 1962. We had a 50th anniversary party for him. Bob Ashby, I'm not sure of the year he joined. It was sometime after Jim, but we had a roast for him one night, a special event, and just two wonderful people. And I remember my first Toastmasters meeting I joined or attended. It was at the Chinese restaurant that Larry mentioned. And Jim said, "You want to give your icebreaker tonight?" And I said, "No, I don't think I do." And he kind of looked at me with that, fatherly encouragement. And he said, "I think you can do it." And I said, "Okay." And I ended up giving my icebreaker on my first night that I visited. And he knew something that I didn't know. He said, "If I can get you up there and get you talking, I can probably get you to come back and keep working on it." And we're very lucky to have have had great mentors in our club that have been long-serving members. Next, let's talk about Tall Tales. Tall Tales is one of the unique activities Toastmasters provides. You can practice storytelling. You can even exaggerate elements of our speaking, mannerisms, voice inflection, however you want to take it. We asked for help from a Tall Tales champion to demonstrate this speaking style. We're pleased that David Watkins offered to provide this Tall Tales example to commemorate this occasion. David is a retired software engineer. He currently resides in the Texas Panhandle. He actually said Dallas-Fort Worth area. I used to live there a number of years ago as well. He's been a member of Toastmasters for over 31 years. He credits Toastmasters with taking this introverted engineer and giving him the communication and leadership skills necessary to survive in the information technology world. Toastmasters has also given him an opportunity to let his creative juices flow through the use of humor speeches and Tall Tales. He's been an avid competitor in the International Speech Contest, humor speeches, Tall Tales, table topics, and even evaluation contest. He was fortunate enough to have won the District 25 Humor Speech Contest once and the District 25 Tall Tales Contest 4 times. In 2010, he published a collection of Tall Tales and humor stories in Crazy Tales and Other Stories, which are available online at Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. Here to present Winter Terrorland, please help me welcome David Watkins.
Winter Terrorland by David Watkins. In a plot straight out of a James Bond movie, the old Soviet Union had devised a dastardly plan to wipe out the upper echelon of our government. A super secret organization hidden deep within the KGB had bred sharks that, instead of swimming through water, could swim through the deep snow. Their plan consisted of flying a cargo plane full of these super mutated sharks over the North Pole and toward Washington, D.C. Arriving in the middle of a heavy snowstorm, the sharks would be parachuted onto the Capitol grounds, where they would then hunt down and eat members of Congress as well as the president and his cabinet. During the winter of 1969, a terrible blizzard descended on North America. Before the Soviet cargo plane could reach the United States, a gigantic polar vortex caught the plane and threw it off course toward the small Texas panhandle town of Phillips. There, the blizzard had already dropped 20 inches of snow. The vortex would add another 20. I walked uphill to school that morning through the almost neck-deep snow, the cold wind blowing in my face and icicles hanging from my runny nose. It was so cold inside the school, they sent us outside for an early recess. It was then that the Soviet cargo plane made an emergency landing on Phillips Avenue, just a hop, skip, and a jump away from Phillips Elementary. As the plane screeched to a halt, the sharks escaped from their pens, devoured the plane's crew, and then swam toward the school and its unsuspecting elementary school students. The first sign of trouble was when the twins, Billy Bob and Bobby Bill, disappeared under the snow. Someone yelled, "Sharks!" That didn't make any sense, unless they were snow sharks. Sure enough, their pure white fins almost blended in with the snow as they swam toward us. We struggled through the neck-deep snow toward groundskeeper Sally's shed. Unfortunately, we lost Bobby Sue and her brother, Suey Bob, along the way. We reached the shed and fell inside, but before we could shut the door, a shark bit off the doorknob. We found some wood to nail the door shut, but we couldn't find a hammer anywhere. Thinking outside the box, or the shed, I opened the window. As a shark swam past, I reached out and I grabbed one. Using the shark, we were able to nail the door shut. Once the door was secured, I tossed the hammerhead shark back out the window. We hoped we could wait out the attack until the blizzard ended. Unfortunately, some not-so-great white sharks began biting holes through the sides of the shed. Not-so-great white sharks? Well, they're smaller and inferior to the great white shark, but don't let them hear you say that. It really hurts their feelings and makes them even more voracious. We decided to climb out of the window and up onto the shed roof to get away from those sharks. We could see the fin tips of those rapacious sharks as they circled the shed. Every once in a while, a shark would leap out of the snow and land on the shed roof. We would have to swing a third grader around to knock the shark back into the snow. I know, this sounds a little cruel, but hey, we were fifth graders at the top of the elementary school pecking order. The rest of the sharks just circled the shed, biding their time and waiting for the not-so-great white sharks to finish biting through the shed walls. Already, the shed was becoming wobbly. It was just a matter of minutes, if not seconds, until we were dumped into the snow. The resulting feeding frenzy would put a group of teenage boys at an all-you-can-eat buffet to shame. As we stood on the roof of the shed, hoping beyond hope that someone could rescue us, I had a brainstorm. Or maybe it was a brain snowstorm. I reached back into the shed and I pulled out groundkeeper Sally's super bright gopher hunting spotlight and a magnifying glass. I shined that bright light through the magnifying glass onto the snow surrounding the shed. The focus light was so hot that it actually melted the snow. When the snow melted, the sharks were left floundering on the ground, which is pretty embarrassing for a shark to be caught acting like a flounder. Soon the high school ROTC arrived. They took care of the sharks with their high-powered, fully automated BB guns. As we climbed down from the shed, we could see Lunch Lady Doris dragging the deceased sharks into the school's cafeteria. Every time I eat a fish stick, I get a little choked up inside. Over the memory of my lost classmates, that is. Of course, this all happened a very, very long time ago. The town of Phillips only exists as a memory. However, on the outskirts of where that tiny town used to be, up in the Texas Panhandle, over 600 miles from the Gulf of Mexico, you will see a small bronze statue of a shark commemorating the lives lost during the winter Terrorland of 1969.
Thank you for that, David. That's wonderful to demonstrate that. I personally have never given a tall tale speech, but that definitely inspires me to attempt to do that. You can see where that gives you a lot greater confidence and lets you practice so many different things. And that's an excellent speech. And we thank you for your participation on that. Next, we'd like to open it up for more general table topics. So we're going to have a general session and allow any current past members along with guests to demonstrate impromptu speaking skills. To lead us in this effort, I'd like to reintroduce Kyle Kemp.
Thank you, Robin. Let's get right into it. How has Toastmasters changed your life, and what is your biggest achievement in the club? Sharon.
Thank you. How has Toastmasters changed my life, and what is my biggest achievement?
Yes, ma'am.
I am a storyteller, and Toastmasters has helped me format my stories. And I'm very good at it. And people in Toastmasters think I'm good at other things too, because I am currently a president of Crescent City, Sergeant at Arms at Kentuckiana Women in Leadership, and a member of Best Side Toastmasters. So people like me. I'm not sure why. I think it's because I tell such great tales. But Toastmasters has helped me do that and helps me formate it. I'm not a tall tale teller. All of my tall tales are actually true tales. They're just tall. Thank you, Toastmaster.
Thank you, Sharon. What is the significant change you see in yourself before and after joining Toastmasters? I'll ask Jean that question.
It changed because of Toastmasters. Thank you. Toastmasters has brought great confidence for me. There were times when I literally would be shaking in my shoes and shaking in my voice. Not understanding until I joined Toastmasters how much confidence can build over time with each and every moment of participation. I had long known the reputation of Toastmasters, of it being a fabulous organization for professional growth, but until I experienced personally with that repeated opportunity to learn and grow, that's what made a huge change for me. Understanding the importance of preparation and throwing out the window the, oh, I'll just wing it and hope for the best. We know that winging it doesn't always produce the best results, but practice does. That's made a big difference for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. I know winging it myself has given me some of the worst anxiety in the past that I've ever had. So learning not to do that will take you a long way. What was the funniest moment you have ever had during a Toastmasters meeting? I'm going to ask that to Eric.
Well, I would say that the funniest moment that I ever had in a Toastmasters meeting would probably end up being my icebreaker speech, because to me, that is the one thing that is most relatable to everybody, that you have a sort of realization that you're actually doing this, and at the same time, you're having an out-of-body experience because you really never thought you were going to speak in front of people before. Then I would say that the next funniest thing for me throughout the time in the club was actually serving in the roles that I did, because I didn't see myself growing into those positions, but I appreciate the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. What drew you to join Toastmasters, and what has kept you coming back? I'm going to ask that to Bob.
Well, I teach public speaking for a living, so I'm always interested in techniques and strategies you can use with students to make that foreboding enterprise of trying to get them to be comfortable with speaking more easy and more readily accessible to them. But the other is, as an adult, I think it's like being an athlete. We've all seen athletes who retire and they gain 100 pounds and they can barely move. I think speaking is the same thing. If you don't use those skills routinely, and Toastmasters lets you do that, you get out of shape, rhetorically speaking. So I found Toastmasters to be a wonderful social outlet as well as a wonderful intellectual outlet. And I've been a member since 1998. So, and I'll be a member for life.
Thank you, Bob. What activity in Toastmasters has kept you coming back and why? I'm going to ask that to Joni.
I would tell you that most people would say it's because I like to talk, and Toastmasters gives me the opportunity to do so. I, however, enjoy coming back for the camaraderie that I have in both of the groups that I'm in. I enjoy being able to listen to them and for them to listen to me, for us to be able to discuss. I can say that I'm sure you guys have had the same issues with going. I enjoy being together for the meetings. And so going on the Zoom has been a definite transition period for us, but we're actually doing a great job with it. Everyone really wants to be a part of Toastmasters. So I have I just have a joy of being together as part of this group and all learning together.
Thank you, Joni. Thank you. And it was great to hear from all the new faces tonight that were joining us for our 75th anniversary. So I just want to say thank you again for joining. Back to you, Toastmaster.
Thank you, Kyle. A great job, and thank you everyone for participating on that. We'll have time at the end of the meeting. We'll stay on and perhaps have discussion with anybody that would like to. But for the moment, let me jump ahead to our Toastmasters International President message that was sent to us. Richard Peck, he's our current Toastmaster International President. He was the senior member of the support network within AT&T, where he worked for over 30 years. And he's been a Toastmaster for 14 years and is a member of his home club in Woodbridge, Connecticut. Matt, if you could tee up the message from Richard.
Hello, members and leaders of Evansville Number One Toastmasters Club. I am Richard E. Peck, your International President. Congratulations on your 75th anniversary and for being a 2019-2020 President's Distinguished Club. These are indeed noteworthy accomplishments in your club's history. I only wish I could be there with you personally to celebrate these tremendous accomplishments. These accomplishments indicate that your club is fulfilling the club mission. These accomplishments also demonstrate that your club has established a Toastmasters legacy, ensuring a sustainable club experience for your members. Since it was chartered on December 1st, 1945, your club has a history of developing outstanding leaders and fulfilling the members' needs. I am extremely proud of you. Thank you, members and leaders, for your dedication to our core values of integrity, respect, service, and excellence. As your International President this year, it is indeed my privilege to acknowledge your club's accomplishments. I wish your club continued success for years to come in meeting the needs of your members, fulfilling the club mission, and growing outstanding leaders. For Toastmasters is truly where leaders are made. Enjoy and celebrate your success.
We're glad Richard was able to send us that message. And one thing he highlighted that we didn't mention earlier, and I was looking back into the Toastmaster archives for any information on club achievements in the past. And honestly, a lot of the information before the computer revolution, it doesn't exist, or I wasn't able to find it. But I believe we achieved the first time the club has met President Distinguished within this last year for the first time in the club's history, at least since that particular club level has been achieved. So we're proud of that and proud of continuing the legacy that was started by many people before us, and are excited to continue that tradition. I will open it up for comments, questions, but before I do that, let me turn it over to Matt for a moment. We didn't have a formal evaluation, speech evaluators, but I just wanted to give Matt an opportunity to provide some comments overall about the meeting, and then I'll reach out to all for questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Robin. I appreciate that. As you said, we don't have our regular evaluation team, and it's probably a good thing because most of it would have to be complimentary, because everyone that we heard from tonight are fairly well-seasoned Toastmasters. Even our younger members like Kyle, who's only been in not even a couple years now, did very well in the way that he interviewed Larry and conducted himself making those transitions. Starting off, I'm rather proud of the fact the way that Stephanie handled the introductions, because as we all know, we weren't all very well versed in Zoom up until about 7-8 months ago. And it was a real transition for us to be able to direct it to specific people. And Stephanie, not having the gallery view like I do, knew to pass it off to me so that I could make sure that it all flowed very well, which I thought was very, very cool of her. I enjoyed Jean bringing up how rare of a club that we were. I appreciated the fact that she dug in enough for her remarks to be able to tell us that. I know from my own experience when I was researching it, I think we were the 6th club chartered in the state, 5 of which still exist. So the Pioneer Club, number 17 being the first, and I think Vigo County's club being the second one. So we only have the distinction of being the first in the southern half of Indiana, but we're number 6, which I thought was pretty cool too. But I appreciated that about her preparation. For Stella, I appreciated the fact the 160 LSTs that she brought up. And during her point, I'll have to admit that she had some audio issues which came from her. So as Toastmasters, that only reminds us to be aware when we're recording things to go back through all of it, because you could tell that at the very beginning it was crystal clear, and it wasn't until a little bit further on that she started having issues. I, of course, had an issue making the transition to the mayor's video. So that's a learning experience for me, but luckily everyone was nice enough to let me work my way through it. Robin, I think, has done an excellent job conducting the transitions between each speaker and providing some feedback and some perspective as we've moved from topic to topic. Larry, I enjoyed his portion where he talked about our club history, but I also thought as he was talking about the Bob Case speech to the Castle Soccer Club, the idea of knowing your audience is something that I think strikes true for every Toastmaster. So knowing what works well in front of every person is definitely something important and a good learning to take forward. And also the fact that Leo, I can't remember his last name, but your mentor in Toastmasters, how he was always continuously talking up Toastmasters and was a great cheerleader. I almost thought to myself, I wonder what it was exactly that he was saying, how he was pitching. Now, obviously that was 40 years ago, so it might need a little bit of updating, but that might be something that Larry will favor us with in an upcoming meeting. During David, I mean, obviously the super tall tales, he had a lot of great nuggets in there. I've never heard of super mutated sharks before. And I don't know if super mutated is actually a word, but it definitely was evocative, and I appreciated that. Along with Billy Bob, Bobby Bill, Bobby Sue, Suey Bob. That struck me as funny. The use of voracious and rapacious, great vocabulary words as words of the week that we always try to have here at Evansville Number One Club. And lastly, with table topics, I thought everyone did a great job. I was particularly impressed by Bob and Joni. And for Eric, I have to admit, when you got called on, knowing that you haven't been in Toastmasters for a while, I was particularly proud in how adept you were at running with that topic and the response that you gave. So props for that. Other than that, like Robin said, not a whole lot of ums and ahs out of Larry, but not really many out of everyone else. So I thought it was a great meeting. I've been looking forward to this 75th anniversary for the past year. And so I'm very glad that we were all able to gather together and celebrate it. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you for that, those summary comments, Matt. Excellent job of capturing a lot of the things that went on to the meeting. I want to thank again all of our guests, certainly those that came from the outside, David Watkins, and offering your tall tales and were able to join us tonight. Certainly the leadership, Sharon, Jean, and Nikki that joined, and all the other guests that came from other parts of the area, and we have one from Australia as well. I will take this opportunity to open it up. If anyone has any comments or questions or anything you'd like to say, you can either just unmute and speak or raise your hand. I saw Kyle jump in first. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I wanted to personally thank Megana for sending me the questions for the table topics. I forgot to mention that at the start. Those were great questions, and I just wanted to give her a thank you for that.
Excellent. Any other comments, questions, feedback? Sharon.
I just have a question. How did you come up with the name Evansville Number One? Does anyone know that?
It was the first club in Evansville, is my understanding. The 40s were a very pragmatic time.
Yeah, I think it was that simple. It was the first one. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for being invited, for Matt to continue to stay in touch and invite us to this. It means a lot that we would stay in touch after all these years, especially after everything else that's going on. And just the things I appreciate about the club, it provided connection to me, for me, to people and men in my life that I would have otherwise had a gap for in other ways. I still reminisce very fondly about how amazing it was to listen to Bob Ashby rattle off poetry and prose that we would have up to 10 minutes sometimes. I think of things that sounded like that he would have memorized at least 3 to 4 minutes of things, and just inspirational times that we spent together. And I'm just grateful for everybody that we do know that we were there, and everybody for being here tonight and still being committed to helping one another. So thanks for including us, Matt, in the group.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining. And we're still meeting virtually, so you're welcome to jump in anytime from Florida. You don't have to be here in person. We'll be doing this for the foreseeable future, so feel free to do that. But good. Other comments? Bob Glenn, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the club. About 5 years ago, we had a member from Mumbai, India, come and visit our club. And I said, you really need, our club at that time was maybe 8 people. And I said, you need the Toastmasters experience from a bigger club. So we went to Owensboro, we went to Evansville Number One at the carousel. And he got to speak, and you all were so incredibly warm and friendly and welcoming to him. And I just thought, if I ever need another reason to be a Toastmaster, it's that we recognize we're a global organization, and we welcomed him with open arms. And he had a great time. Yeah, I drove me back and forth, and he couldn't stop talking about how nice a club you were and how good the food was, and wasn't it wonderful they let him speak. He gave a little presentation. So I just want to thank you again, because that was a nice moment.
Awesome. Thank you for that, and great story to share. Jean, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I just can't let this evening go without acknowledging the preparation that has gone into this meeting. It's clear that there was great planning, there was great thoughtfulness, and the personality of your club just shone through the entire meeting. The caring that you have for each other, the standard of excellence that you set, and the relationships that you continue to grow and build. This has just been a delightful meeting, one that's sincere, genuine, fun, and very honoring of your history and looking forward to your future. Well done. Very well done.
Thank you for those comments, Jean. Yeah, we definitely want to be a welcoming open club, and we even pride ourselves. I don't know how many members, but it's somewhere between 5 and 10 that English is a second language. So we love it when people come and use Toastmasters as a forum. It's a safe place to fail. Come in and don't worry about what others are thinking. Just come in and practice. So we have quite a few, and we strive to be that club. So thank you for your comments on that. Other comments, questions? I see Matt with his hand up again.
Yeah, well, when Eric mentioned his, he was just like, I think you specifically said men that you could talk to in the club. And that is something. I've been in the club 10 years now, and it really was kind of a men's club for the most part, not intentionally, but the makeup was very different when we first started. It was just guys for the most part. And I remember Robin and I having discussions about the fact of, wouldn't it be nice to get a female perspective in here every once in a while? And so it's been great to see the dynamic shift, not only for, as Robin said, many international members of our group, but the number of females that have joined our group as well. And I think it's really made everything so much better. I think Eric might have kicked that off by bringing his wife to a Toastmasters meeting. So he might have gotten the ball rolling for us.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Stephanie's been I think 2 years or 3 years as past president, Stephanie, at least 2 or 3. And Sharon is a past president of Evansville Number One Club. So we're definitely want to keep that trend going. Ryan, I'm going to open it up. I did see you raise your hand, but we're glad to have you here. And Ryan is one of these that he's juggling about 5 balls at a time. He's running 2 businesses. He's got young kids at home, and he did made every effort to join us for, I think, 2 or 3 years, and finally got to the point where he just had to slow down and something had to give. And Toastmasters, unfortunately, was one of those that had to give, but we're glad to have Ryan back in the visitor role, and can certainly have you coming back at any other time in the near future.
Thank you, Robin, so much. And you know, this has just really been so awesome, listening to these stories and thinking about the history. And you know, one of the things that I was thinking about was my grandfather, who served in World War II. He was an engineer. He was always fascinated by technology. And when I really think about when 75 years ago the club started, I'm sure they never imagined that one day you'd have all of these people from literally around the world sitting in front of a little box with, you know, cameras and computers and maybe even a mobile phone, conducting a meeting that took place, you know, that was chartered in Evansville, Indiana, and created this massive connection amongst people. So I'm just fascinated by that. And I just think about, you know, what is the next 75 years going to look like? And, you know, maybe virtually you can run up to a podium, you know, so that's really neat to think about. And I just find it fascinating. So thank you so much for everything tonight. I've really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Ryan. Thank you for being able to jump on tonight. Any other comments, questions, thoughts? No, we're running a little bit over. We planned for this to be at least hour and 15 minutes or so, so apologize. But Stephanie, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I said in the beginning, I think during the meeting, most of you have got to know some of my members. And for the members who have not introduced yourself during the meeting, I think now probably is a good time to do so. And my members, can you briefly just introduce yourself about how long you have been in the Evansville Number One Club, and what you're most thankful for joining the club?
Looking on my screen, I'll go Timothy first. If you can unmute Timothy.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. Well, I've been really privileged to be at the Evansville Number One Club for now about 2.5 years. And like most people here, I too joined with the intention to improve my public speaking skills. And I've found a home here that has been really encouraging and has helped me drastically become more confident, say fewer ums and ahs, and I really have enjoyed the experience in growing as a speaker and as a leader here.
Good. And recently completed level 2. It's approved and in the system.
Mm-hmm.
Great job. PJ, I saw you there, but you shifted on my screen. There you go.
Hi, I'm PJ Sheeter, and I've been in the club over 2 years now, and time has flown. I didn't think I really was in the club 2 years until Timothy said he was in the year and a half, and I know that I was in there 6 months before him. I think the number one thing is it's amazing that I spent 48 years just so fearful of getting up in front of people, and it took a little less than a few months to break down that barrier. And I think that's the biggest thing that Toastmasters has done for me. Back to you.
Alejandro.
Yes, thank you, Robin. I'm Alejandro, and I work here in Evansville at an engineering firm. And I joined Toastmaster, I think right around the beginning of the year, and did it because, you know, I think it's going to help me as I progress in my professional career. And I'm always looking for ways to improve myself, and I think I have a lot to improve on my public speaking. And so far, I've enjoyed the feedback that we get from some of the members that have been here for a number of years. They really try to give us some helpful advice on how to become better speakers, and I really enjoy that. That's one of the things that really keeps me coming back. Back to you, Robin.
Thank you. For the others, did we miss anyone? Logan, I see Logan there. Go ahead, Logan.
Thank you, Robin. My name's Logan Robinson. I've been a member of the club for just over 3 years now. The biggest thing that I've gotten from the club is an understanding that there are a lot of other people just like me that are nervous when they have opportunities to speak. And over the last 3 years, my confidence levels have really made a huge change. I used to be just extremely nervous. When it was coming up to be my turn to talk, I'd start yawning and all the bodily reactions that you have, the fight or flight responses, and those have certainly gotten way better. So I look forward to that improving even further. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you. Magna, you were right there in the middle of my screen. I skipped right over you.
Yeah, thank you, Robin. My name is Meghna, and I am Adult Basic Education Coordinator and Instructor here. And I joined Toastmasters Number One Club here, Evansville Toastmaster Number One Club. It's been less than a year, but I would say just one thing, that every communication, every speech preparation, and every small task we do in between is a learning experience here, and I'm enjoying every bit of it. And I'm here for the same reason. When it comes to the classroom, it's perfect, but when it comes in a crowd with the strangers, I do struggle, and I'm learning from here, and I'm glad to be a part of such a wonderful club. And thank you all so much for coming tonight. Thank you. Back to Robin.
Thank you, Magna, and thank you for the energy and excitement you bring to the club. And Magna also served on our planning committee for this event and was responsible for bringing David Watkins into it. So we thank Magna and David for coming on board. Guanxin, I skipped over you because you're sitting next to Stephanie, and I forget the double people there.
Thank you, Rodi. I'm Guanxin, and I'm working in Subic, and I joined the club for more than 4 years so far, and it's really, when I realized that it really, the time is so fast. The reason I joined the club to improve my English and up my confidence in front of the person. And now I think still there's a long way to go, but one thing I noticed myself, the big change is now I have confidence, and I know the ways I should to improve my speaking skills, and at least I think I built up my confidence in front of the group of peoples. And this really, I enjoyed to attend this club. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Guanxin. Guanxin served as our Sergeant in Arms. We thought it was a Supreme Court nomination that he had to keep it until he died, but fortunately, unfortunately for Guanxin, we were able to allow him to take a break from that role as Stephanie has taken on. So thank you for your participation, Guanxin. Any other comments? I don't think I missed anyone. Anyone else have anything you want to say? Question, comment before we close? If not, once again, thank you all for helping us celebrate this event. It's been a really great milestone for us to acknowledge also the people that came before us and helped create the legacy of this club. And we hope to keep it going longer and appreciate all the outside support that we got for this meeting tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you.